Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming to our small business panel today for AFCEA. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, Tom Perry of AFCEA. He's the international lead for small business liaisons. To my left, our panelists, respectable panelists. Mel Yokoyama is a 30-year retired Navy captain, commanded NIWC He also co-founded and is the CEO of Decisive Instincts, an NHO that gives back to his local community. Let's see, he used to run, also a Navy aviator who did reconnaissance, information warfare, and cyber missions. To his left, Mr. Rob Woborski is the SES and Chief Engineer for NavWar. He's managed upwards of $9 billion in projects, and he's also the recipient of the Presidential Meritorious Award for Executives. Shayla Teza is the Small Business Administration representative in Hawaii. She's been a small business specialist for 21 years, and she's worked multiple administrations for small business for 3 other states. Ms. Julie Weinstein is the CIO for NAVFAC Hawaii. She manages critical information and infrastructure facilities for the Navy to include cybersecurity. Her role is critical for ensuring facilities and infrastructure are capable of meeting mission need in the theater. Mr. Bob Schultes, who's not here just yet, is the CIO for MAR4PAC G39, G6. He's also the recipient of a Presidential Volunteer Award and multiple other military honors. If you could join me in a round of applause welcoming our panelists. Tom, take it away.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. How's everybody doing? Great. Big round of applause and thank you to Makana. Makana did a yeoman's job of helping us get this stood up. I put the call out to him just a couple of weeks ago. We got the green light to have a small business panel, and I said, who do I know who knows everybody? And Makana got it started. The ball got it rolling, and between him and Mel, we brought together the entire panel. This is fantastic. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you guys get your dollars worth here. So we're going to start off with going through the panel and having a little conversation about what their background is, kind of going and getting a little bit more of what they want to deliver to you as far as their message today. So I'm going to start directly to my left with Mel.
Test. All right, aloha. Thanks again for the opportunity to be up on stage here with my distinguished panelists to my left, Mr. Rob Woborski and Ms. Sheila and Julie. Why am I on stage? You know, first I wanted to be next to Rob. I haven't been with Rob in several years. He and I worked together back in the old data center consolidation days. But when I retired from the Navy, what I wanted to do was to figure out how can we get capabilities out to the pointy end fast. And when I mean to the pointy end, I mean in the hands of the warfighters. My last job deployed was in Baghdad, where I was the minister of Iraq, his advisor during 2016 with ISIS. And what I saw was, hey, okay, we got this acquisition process. This process is involved, and there's a reason, but we need to get things fast. And you see this in Ukraine, and I want to talk about that after, but this is one of my props.
Yeah, I'd add that we're seeing it everywhere all the time, and we need to learn to get out of our own way. At a very high level, we talk about small business. The SecNav gets it with respect to small business, and he's really driving the entire Department of the Navy to get it from a small business perspective. Where I come in, I'm basically the chief engineer for the Navy's information warfare enterprise, and it's not just stopping it where our C4I people feel comfortable, but it's the entire mission thread from the origination of data, wherever that is, whatever sensor, whatever database, whatever thing, to a warhead on a forehead in the case of fires and things like that. Or for a sailor to be able to make that bank transaction while he's somewhere in the South China Sea on deployment, so he doesn't have to worry about his bills being paid. So what does that mean to small business? The tone and tenor of what we're doing in the information warfare arena lends itself to smaller, faster capability upgrades, and we want to go world class. We want to know what the rest of the world's doing and small business is doing for niche markets out there in the IWIT industry, and we want to be able to take advantage of that. And how do we do that given what we have today? Well, we need to friggin' learn from what we have today, and I think we need to open our architectures, and we need to become more modular, and we need to embrace, and we need to get over ourselves on the regulatory environment that we live and operate in. And if you're going to put something new on a ship that increases your cybersecurity, it shouldn't take you 3 years to get permission from the cybersecurity people to put this thing on your ship that gives you additional cybersecurity or situational awareness. And I think I'm perfectly postured to go attack and defeat any and all those barriers that get in the way that'll enable small business, set small business free as far as I'm concerned. Now, from an acquisition program and a contracting strategy, I think once you get the technology right, that lends itself to smaller, faster, more aggressive delivery of capability, I think that the ACT strategies can and will follow. So I'm sure there'll be more to talk about that in the next hour and a half of this
There
panel,
will be,
so.
for certain. That is for sure. All right, Shayla.
Where the SBA comes in. Okay, thank you. Where the SBA comes in is for those who are starting a business, or even if you're already in business and you're seeing that the eligibility criteria in order to even bid on a job is a little bit overwhelming, and you're interested in doing a mentor protege or a joint venture, that's where the SBA can come in and assist you. We do have resource partners that provide free business counseling. We do have small business certifications. I do have flyers here to hand out if you are eligible to meet like service disabled veteran owned, hub zone, women owned, or 8A. We definitely will try and assist you in getting that certification so that when these contracts get set aside, your competition is limited to only other small business certified firms, and so you're not competing directly with the big boys. But even on the larger contracts that are not set aside for small business, that's where the joint venturing and mentor protege can come in and assist you. And those are two different topics, mentor, protege, and joint venture. And if you have any specific individual questions about that, come see me. And I have business cards too. We can do a one-on-one. But we just want to let you know that you're not doing this all alone. There are free resources available to you, okay, as you're breaking into the federal contracting world.
Great. Thank you very much. Julie.
Hi, Julie Weinstein, CIO, NAFAC Hawaii. So facility-related control systems, so that's where our specialty is in. And what's interesting, or I think different about us, one, I keep joking with these guys, is that I'm the field and this is where the work is done while they make up the policy. But what's important for you guys to know is our contracts are with the big construction A&E firms, right, for MilCons and any kind of project. And then if you're looking specifically for technology, it would be subbing with those big firms that win those contracts, or exactly what you were talking about, partnerships, whatever programs a small business directorate has for you to get in, because there's always going to be a cyber portion on those MilCons, and you'll be working with my team. So specifically in that arena, that is how you get into the NAFAC, or the facility related control system critical infrastructure cyber world, is through those MilCon contracts. And we'll get into a little bit more details of, and some of you have heard me speak if you've been here local before. I generally will tell you how not to bleed out, how not to lose money on the projects that we're working on, and what I need from you. And I do have some ideas that we can talk about later on that we look for small business, especially on island small business.
Great. Thank you very much. Now, I'm going to bring it back to the audience. A little participation. Hands up if you're a small business. Let's go hands up if you are other than small business. All right. Looking around, we have almost all small businesses here who want to do different things. We all are here to learn a little bit more about ways to get value out of what we're providing to our customers and our clients. Value is a key word. How do we figure out what that value means? I'm going to start off with Mel, and I'm going to ask you to describe for me what you think value is for your customer and how you can provide that at speed.
Thanks for the question. So value is what depends on the customer, of course, but if you look in general, I kind of want to back up and to kind of set the stage of why I think this answer is important. We're 801 days away from January 1st, 2027. If you're not tracking that date, then please understand your customer base, Department of Defense, because they're tracking that date, especially that timeline between now and January 1st, 2027. And why is that important? It drives urgency. So when it comes to value, I think the value of a small business is how fast you can pivot and meet the requirements of, again, not the acquisition community. I was part of it, and Rob knows. That's great. There's a process to do it, but how fast can you get that capability to the fleet, in this case, the Navy, Marine Corps, all the other DoD services at the point of need. So I hope that answers the question about what does value mean. Value means there's an urgency, and we need to get stuff out there fast.
Yeah, I see a lot of things. I'll glom onto that point. It's the way we've always done business is just not working for us in the context of what we got to do between now and 1 January of 2027. And so what are we going to do different? And I look at it as if we're going to go buy the big, monolithic ACAT-1 system and deliver it to the fleet during CNO availabilities with hull cuts and 6 months of time tied up to the ship. And that big monolithic system takes 1.5 years to build and costs a boatload of money, no pun intended, and a lot of money to install. How many of those are you going to get done between now and 1 January 2027? And even if it has a new function or capability. So we gotta think out of the box. And we got to decompose the functionality and the capabilities in these systems into smaller pieces, like I said before. And how can we say, what is the goodness in this big system that I can only deliver 13 or 18 of between now and 127 and put it on 100 ships? And those are the questions we're asking now internally from a technical feasibility perspective. What are the things in the way? We're getting into more of a level of readiness commensurate with wartime. Not that we're at war, obviously, but that date is how are we going to maximize our readiness and the capability that we can bring to the game at that time, and how we're going to do that by thinking about decomposing and breaking things up, disaggregating the big monolithic system into more of an open architecture capability that allows us to flow things in faster, smaller things in faster, and understand, get ourselves in a posture where we can accept more risk, because from a digital engineering perspective, we have a higher level of fidelity and confidence in what we're doing at any given time, and the ability to go to a virtual twin or something like that. If it doesn't work, we can back it out and then download, or get us back to the last known good configuration. So these are all things that we're really aggressively chasing and pursuing, as far as why I think there's going to be significant opportunities for small business in the relative near term, expect in the Navy.
Boy, that's exciting. Love that. Would love to unpack more of that. We will get there. Shayla, how do you see small businesses in Hawaii bringing value to PACOM?
Okay, so every agency, whether it's SBA, GSA, the Navy, Army, we all have the same small business goals. Prior to COVID, those goals were 5% 8A and women-owned, 3% hub zone and service-disabled veteran. Since COVID, those goals have increased. So for FY25, for example, the 8A goal is 15%, up from 5%. It's been increasing every year. There's talk that they want to increase the 3% service-disabled veteran goal to 5%. And then, of course, woman-owned and hub zone. Understand that because there's not a lot of small businesses with those certifications, it's hard to meet those goals. However, Whenever the government cannot set aside a contract and it has to go full and open, we then delegate those goals to the primes to meet. So now we have big businesses trying to find women-owned, hub-zone, small business, service-disabled, and 8A firms that can help them meet those goals that we've delegated to them. So the value, I mean, the mission of the SBA is to support and advocate the small business because it's the small businesses that create jobs. Job creation is what spurs the economy. So in our minds, it's all tied together.
Great answer. Just a real quick, other than small businesses, raise your hand again. Look around. You see the other than small businesses who care about small businesses. They are the ones who you will look to partner with because they will be looking to help small businesses hit those marks. And they are governed by their small business subcontracting plans to hit those marks as well. So take mark of who's around here. Those are the people that you want to talk to. All right, thank you very much. Julie, value.
Right, I can give you specifics because it's all about me. So what I need from small businesses here locally for facility-related control system cybersecurity on those MilCons are a couple of things. One, I've talked about it before in other events with good control system design lends itself to good cybersecurity, right? So on this island, we struggle with local control system support. We fly in vendors to support our control systems. That's really not going to work in a contested environment, right? So there's opportunity there in our control system area. Also, as they were mentioning, we need, even though I 100% agree, would love to get rid of compliance. It hasn't happened yet, Rob. If you could get on that, I would really appreciate it because we spend a ton of money and time getting these systems to be compliant. So there's a huge effort there. The faster that you can do that, and that's the risk management framework, right? The faster that you learn that capability, and that's right for small business, and that's what those big A&E contractors are going to sub out to you when they're designing those control systems, is designing the cybersecurity portion to that. I need that done faster, and I need it done well. I cannot afford for my team to fix it for you. And then lastly, I would say sustainment. It goes back to, okay, we got these control systems, they've got their ATO, we're monitoring supply chain management on parts, vendor support, again, not having to fly people in to support it. And that is just the cyber opportunity. Afterward, I can give you a QR code just to talk to our small business administrator. I should have talked to our Chang. With these massive contracts going out through NAFAC for construction right now, there's a huge need for additional support from small businesses, not just in the cyber realm. And I'm sure they can give a list as well. But again, it goes back to that speed of execution. We need to get this done, but we need things built well right from the start.
Oh, that's a great point. Now that takes me into innovation, because big thing that small businesses, most of the small businesses here can talk about the innovation that they bring to the table. So I'm going to go down the panel again. Mel, I'm going to start with you because you have the elephant in the room or the helicopter on the table.
Yeah, it
talk
doesn't
a little
bite.
bit about your innovation and why you have a visual aid for us.
Yeah, first of all, the reason I did small business again is one is a small business owners, and you folks understand this, you're everything. You're the financial person, you're the secretary, you're the proposal writer. You have the full gamut of running the company and contracting. But what I really wanted to do as a small business owner was find innovative capabilities. You know, if you're familiar with NAWRC Pacific, NAVWAR, NAWRC Pacific is primarily research and development with about 5,000 engineers and scientists doing cutting-edge stuff, but working within the parameters of the acquisition process. I found this guy. He's right there. He's on his phone right now with Amalek. He just flew in from Silicon Valley. This is his small business owner. This UAV here is 3D printed. It does a different way. He started a company to do 3D printing up in space, first of all. Right, so this thing can print out one of these right now per hour, including everything. Engines, it goes up several thousand feet, 100 miles per hour. Lesson learned from Ukraine. Okay, if you look at the Ukraine, their R-18 UAV, it's about 3.6 kilograms, but it drops a 2-pound grenade. And here's one of the quotes I loved, and this came, I think it was CNN or something, that they calculated that $1 invested in the production of a UAV, of a drone, causes $1,000 worth of damage to the enemy. And that's a nice return on investment, if I could say. Because, you know, I used to fly for the Navy, shoot those missiles. Those are multi-million-dollar missiles taking out a $50,000 drone. It's not the best way to do it. But I'll talk more about this. But when it comes to innovation, it's finding companies like this, getting it through a small business, and pushing it out to the fleet.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. This thing here is badass. I know what to tell you. Because I saw that we were digitally printing drones, and one drone about the quarter size of this thing was taking about 6 to 8 hours in a rapid printing fashion. And I can tell you that speed and the ability to print something of this scale and magnitude at that velocity, in some cases you got that significant challenge or paradigm that needs to shift, and it's you've created something that has tremendous potential warfighting utility and value, but there's no requirement for it, even though there really is. That's some malicious compliance behavior. And there's no budget, no program line for it. And we need to figure out and be aggressive. And that's another thing that we're really being aggressive about, is that technology in our world is moving so much faster than the budgeting, the PBB budgeting process. Technology is moving so much faster than the JSID's DoD 5000 acquisition requirements generation process. And we keep talking about wanting to be cutting edge and being modern, but we have these things. I always give the example of you've built something great, and it took me a month to build this thing and 18 months to get an ATO to use this thing. And we've got to look at all of those things that don't make sense, or that were generated in a peacetime posture where we could have this abundance of, caution, lack of risk, and turn that on its head and look at, this is awesome. How do we get this out to Task Force 59 or somebody that can go exercise this capability and think about how we can, build this into our ConOps. Somebody asked a question at the last panel about unmanned, and what are we doing about unmanned, and how are we going to get, what business opportunities are there for unmanned? We need to figure out a way so that we can get more of these kinds of things in our mainstream to demonstrate and pilot these capabilities and show the warfighters what they could or couldn't do, or get them thinking about how we can use this technology. Because, like he said in CNN, it's for every dollar you invest, you can bring $1,000 worth of damage to your adversary. Well, you don't think the adversary read that article too? We gotta not let the bureaucratic inertia hold us back from doing what needs to get done in the department. And I can tell you that in my world, I'm being aggressive about looking at every and all avenue to move faster. We do Trident Warrior demonstrations every year. I think those things, how do we open the aperture to get more people in small businesses the ability to showcase their stuff in a shipboard tactical domain? That's on me to go work with my small business folks to figure out how we could put out an announcement to have that kind of thing done. But we're also looking at, hey, we got to work, like he had mentioned, Ukraine, we're having some issues in the Red Sea. What is the capability gap that we have today? And just ask industry, give me your best idea, the best technology and capability you have to fill this gap. And I want this on a ship in the next 3 months. Everybody just gasps like, well, that's impossible. We're not defying physics here, folks. we're saying, out of all these rules, I think I said something like electromagnetic interference and human safety, so that you put it on the ship and it doesn't jam everybody or open garages in Coronado, or it doesn't, in a shock environment, send a projectile to kill sailors. But beyond that, I think it's like, what's the harm? What's the harm in
All right,
putting it on there and doing it?
so this is making me want to unpack a little bit more. How is your office helping to drive that speed? Are you looking at the use of other transactional authorities or
Yeah.
OTAs, SIBRs, sitters?
Yep.
What is your office doing to
Well,
open
my
that up?
office, Brian, so you hiding back there, critiquing me, right? I'm not the contracting shop at NavWar. I'm not a program office with Title 10 authority. But what I am is I have this thing called Technical Certification Authority, and I'm the chief architect, and I'm also the lead for digital engineering transformation. And I'm pushing all of these things and showing at an enterprise level the right answer and making it easy for program managers to do the right thing instead of them asynchronously, maliciously complying with, requirements and standards and programmatic direction that was given to them 5 years ago that doesn't make a lot of sense today. So I do think SIBRs and I think for one thing, we're doing these technology challenges. We're going to be doing a lot more of them. We're going to be doing a lot different flavors of them. We're going to be very aggressive about those. And I think those are going to yield themselves to transitioning things out of the SIBR program. I'm a huge advocate for the SIBR STTR program. I was the CTO at NavWar before I got voluntold to do data center consolidation for 2 years with Mel and suffer in that foxhole. And I ran all the NavWar SIBR programs. It's amazing when you actually find out what things started with SIBRs. But I think an expansion of the SIBR program and a little more facilitation between the actual SIBRs and the program offices, and some guidance to people who are generating SIBRs. What is that technology roadmap? What is that future architecture? What does it look like, and how does this fit in there? Will all lend themselves to a better result. And then on the OTA side, that's the quick, and we're going to start expanding I see the wide expansion of OTAs. I've used them a few times already for like RMF process automation and things like that, to help this wife, Julie down there, But, and I think that we need to do much more expanded use of those OTAs moving forward. And I think that we're going to be going to industry with OTAs to say, hey, give me a modular network design, or, I need a cybersecurity capability. How can you do it? Or, I want to look at a bunch of, an AI ML tool specialized in looking at patterns and practices or whatever. I think that the ability, the desire to go and open those things up, we're not going to go fast by going down the classic FAR contracting mechanisms for major contracts. The only way we're ever going to go fast is by exploring these other alternate means of looking at what technologies and capabilities. And I think there's a significant diet for it. I also think that if you look across the Navy enterprise, from the CNO and Project 33 and what she wants to do, all the way down to my boss, Admiral Seiko Okano, and down into the enterprise, at OpNav with our resource sponsors, at Fleet Cyber with Admiral Clapperton, at Nav I4, we all have the desire to do this. And we're all looking at what role do each of us play to facilitate the ability to deliver things more agile and faster. So how do we operate within the POM when there wasn't a budget line dedicated to something that we know we should go do? And how do we adapt and adjust and fix in the next budget, try to better project what it is we're going to do. So there's a significant appetite for that kind of change.
Outstanding. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to go back to innovation. I'm going to jump to Julie really quickly, talk a little bit about what you see as innovation within your office.
Okay, well, alas, I have no money, but because if I did, it would be spectacular. However, I know where the money is, and that is my suggestion. As I'm sitting here looking out in the crowd thinking, okay, if I was a small business, this would seem kind of intimidating in the sense I got to build a drone now? So what I would encourage all of you to look at, again, back at the MilCons, how would you get in with the government as a contractor? We talked about the different options that there are. However, again, with the MilCons, when they contract out to a major firm for either design and construction, or just design or just construction, they are required to give some business to small business for what the government needs, right? But then you also have to look at, what do they need? They have to build that facility on time and under budget. So I encourage you not only to look at what the government has put in the contracts that they need, that they're going to sub out, like I said, particularly with cybersecurity, but I see that there's a whole field of where you could be building and innovating probably faster for those big firms than directly with the government. And then it sort of feeds into us. Does that make sense to everyone? So for example, we were talking about here, I mean, honestly, all of us are probably going to quit and start a small business. When I left, I told my people, you better be here before, because they were running through small business ideas of what, one of the big things was project management, right? So that's huge, and especially you're looking at all these big firms, construction management, project management, the financial management. What are you guys providing that makes them successful at that? Because they, again, have to get those MilCons done on time and on budget. So I would say that's where there's the innovation at the level that we're looking at over here. Down in the field, it's difficult. If you bring something to me, right, I'm not a design authority and I have no money, we've established that, right? So I can maybe be interested in what you have, but it has to run through a larger chain. You're better off doing one of these presentations at DC, and then you're getting those small business. For here locally, I think the best avenue for innovation is supporting those big construction firms. Does that make sense to everyone?
That's good. Ben, thank you very much. Now I'm going to shift this conversation just a little bit, because we are talking innovation. And as a small business, when we innovate, we generally find our way of funding it. And then we've got to scale when we go to the DoD. Shayla, how does the SBA help us scale?
Okay, so SBA and DoD collaborate under, we've been talking about sitters and spurs. I'm sure you probably, are some of you familiar with that acronym or no? Okay, so SBIR is the Small Business and Innovation Research Program, and then there's the sitters, which is the Small Business Technology Transfer Program. So these are funding that is set aside specifically for research and development. There's usually 3 or 4 phases. Phase 1 is the R&D or the design. Phase 2 is building the prototype, and then phase 3 is the commercialization. So as far as innovation, I know that I get a lot of small businesses that meet with me and say, hey, I've got this great idea. I think it's going to benefit the government. I just don't know how to market it. I don't know where to start. But in the federal contracting world, it's not what new innovation you have. When it comes to solicitations, you have to comply with the scope of work that they are asking you to put a bid proposal on, and it may not be or include the innovation that you just created. So the best thing to do to market that new innovation is every agency has a small business specialist working through their OSDBU, which is the Office of Small Disadvantaged Business Utilization. So if you Google OSDBU for the Army or a small business specialist for the Navy, you'll find that POC, that point of contact. And then hopefully you have a capabilities statement, and hopefully you have like a short 3 or 5 minute YouTube or PowerPoint presentation, because then you could just ask for a 10-minute meeting with that small business specialist. Hopefully that small business specialist can invite contracting or the engineers like Rob, and then they all can view your 10-minute presentation, and then that's how you're going to market this new innovation that you've created. Okay? So, but if you are interested in the SBIR or SBIR or the STTR programs, I do have the website where they announce the funding and the actual announcements. So after this event, you can just take a picture. I only have one flyer. I didn't know this topic was going to be brought up. So, but that's how SBA can contribute to your innovative.
Isn't there, talk about
endeavors. Go ahead.
Do you want to talk about the government rights to, the government and the contractor rights that they get when they do that? I don't think it's all. Oh, the government and contractor rights. I think there's rules. This is a way for you to develop something that you get to share the right, the data rights to it, to then be able to do your version of Badass at some point and be able to sell it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be through a phased resubber. It could be something that the government doesn't elect to execute a phased resubber. It doesn't stop you from going and refining and selling it, that capability, if you find the warfighting element that would benefit the most from it and can embrace and figure out how to get around their own processes to do it. So.
I kind of want to take this to a higher level, at the 60,000-foot view. And it's really, at least what I'm hearing, is really about the defense industrial base. What's the readiness of the United States defense industrial base? You know, there's some GAO reports saying that the small business contracting awards have gone up. However, small businesses in general, the numbers went significantly down. We're talking 40% decline in small businesses. So what does that do? That poses a risk when it comes to building things at speed. So your capability capacity goes down. The second piece is now you're down to maybe one or two vendors. And if those vendors get, I don't know, hacked or something happens, there goes delivery capabilities out to the fleet. So I think when it comes to, especially with the SBA, so SBA has been great. I've gone through the 8A process. Unfortunately, it took me 347 days. However, with the new certified.sba.gov website, hopefully that will get it down to 3 days. At least that's the goal. Same thing with your facility clearance. You know, all these factors come in when you're a small business to actually be able to take stuff like this and get it out to the fleet. So I appreciate the innovation and the speed and the culture. Rob says the right culture for a government organization, but it starts way left of boom when it comes to small business. So thank you.
Oh, no, you're going to keep talking in just a second because the next question comes back to you. And this is going to talk a little bit about those relationships. You've got a relationship, obviously, with another small business. You've probably got relationships with other large businesses. How do we look at relationships with other businesses? How do we cultivate those relationships in the PACOM area? That's for you, Mel.
So it's all about the defense industrial base. You know, obviously you got your COCOMs, your PACOMs, your PAC fleets, MAR4, user PACs, and all these folks here. Hawaii is a little different, meaning everyone's on one island. We're all on the same ship. So everyone's pulling and hopefully rowing in the same direction. So building that relationship is actually taking off your badge, you know, getting away the us versus them sort of mentality, because that's the only way we're going to make it happen. And the more interactions like this, the stronger the defense industrial base will be, and the faster things will go.
All right, that's good advice. I'm going to come back now to Shayla, talk a little bit about some of the types of relationships that we can create with other companies. In particular, you at the SBA have a mentor-protege program that's specifically designed to help larges and smalls merge together. Real quick plug, FC International, the Small Business Committee, has our own mentor-protege program. It's an informal one. We have it every year in the spring. If you guys are interested in that, keep following me on LinkedIn and watching the Small Business Committee on LinkedIn because we will post about that. But we bring in people like Shayla to talk about the SBA, the DoD, and other mentor-protege programs. But we're going to get a little bit on the mentor-protege program here and what that looks like. Formerly known as the All Small Mentor-Protege program.
Okay, so the Department of Defense has their own mentor-protege program, and it's very interesting. It's completely different from the SBA's program. So if you can't sleep at night, please read up on the DoD's mentor-protege, because I know it'll benefit some of you. But as far as SBA, Tom is correct. It used to be called the All Small Mentor-Protege. You don't need to have a certification to participate in the mentor-protege program. It's now just called SBA's mentor-protege program. A lot of the questions I get is, will SBA assist me in locating a mentor? We cannot, because if that relationship goes sour, We can't have fingers pointing right back at us. So it is incumbent upon you to get to know another president of another small business. See if you guys, if the relation, it's like a marriage, right? And SBA has to bless it. The mentor protege program assists in that where you are lacking resources or are weak in a specific area in your business, whether it's you don't have the bonding or you don't have enough labor or you don't have the past performance or you don't have the equipment, that's where a mentor can come in and assist you. And the benefit for them is that you two would form a joint venture, and that joint venture is specific to performing that contract that you otherwise would not have won without the assistance of your mentor. Now, the mentor-protege agreement, so your relationship is in black and white, and it's measurable, so that as SBA, what we're trying to do is ensure that a large business is not making attempts to negatively control the smaller business, and to make sure that you are actually gaining and benefiting from the relationship. Right now, any one of you can have a mentor-protege agreement, right? And you don't have to have a certification. If you are in the 8A program or any small business certification program, in order to joint venture with a large business, you would have to have an SBA-approved mentor-protege in place. But if you want to joint venture with another small business, you don't need a mentor-protege. But these are ways for the SBA to ensure that the small business is benefiting from the relationship. There's no negative control by another larger business. And the benefit for you is you're getting hands-on experience that no other government agency can provide. If you look at solicitations on sam.gov, you're going to see that within the scope, there's eligibility criteria you have to meet in order to be able to bid. Like they want to see, like in construction, for instance, maybe they want to see 2 $5 million projects that you've recently completed. I don't know any small business that have completed $5 million projects, right? So it's one thing to gain the certification, but it's another to see how is that certification going to benefit you? Are you going to get the ROI? Because like Mel said, it can take 367 days to get that certification. So he is right, even though it hasn't been officially announced, we did recently upgrade the certified.sba.gov platform so that for any certification you guys are eligible for, you only have to do it one time. Whereas before, if you were woman-owned or HubZone or 8A, you had to go to 3 different platforms to apply. Now it's just a one-time thing, so it's a one-stop shop. And all you're doing is uploading documents for us to review, and that's how we're trying to streamline it. So, but yes, as far as relationships, I think that even if you don't qualify for a certification, look at all the people here. Don't be discouraged that you don't qualify. Make a best friend that's a woman-owned business, or make a best friend that's a HubZone certified, or a service-disabled veteran-owned. Simply because you can't always do 100% of the scope. You're always going to sub out a portion of that scope of work, right? And you're only going to do business with people you've met face-to-face. So while you're here at these events, and not just this event, you should be bringing a stash of your capability statement and start building your team, your network, so that when you see these solicitations come out and you see a portion of the scope that you can't do, you can say, hey, I have the capability statement of so-and-so that I met at the event. Maybe we can team together. So that is the value of relationships. For us here at the SBA Hawaii District Office, what really hurts us is when we see contracts being awarded to mainland firms or Alaska Native corporations. Because that tells us the main thing, somebody's not doing their marketing, somebody's not teaming or networking with each other. We really want to see these jobs specific to local firms, because it's the local firms that are create jobs on the island and keep people on the island instead of moving to Vegas or wherever. So that's how we roll. And like I said, I have all these flyers. And I know time is rushing out. So there's 2 things I need you guys to know right now. Google the U.S. Treasury's Financial Crime Enforcement Network, FCEN, or I have the flyer. We do have a workshop coming up. You have to be registered with the U.S. Treasury's website. you will get fined. And if you don't know about that, you'll find out the hard way, and I'd rather have you save the money and register for that. It is not SBA, it is IRS. The other thing specific to your industry is you guys will eventually have to go after your CMMC certification. And a lot of the questions I get now is, will SBA help to pay for that? Because a level 2 can range up to $150,000. We don't have the funding, and unfortunately, we don't even have the services to do the training. But we're working on trying to get some workshops put together for you so you at least familiarize yourself with that. And then we're trying to work with our resource partners to see if maybe there's sponsorships available to at least assist you in getting started. Okay, so CMMC and the U.S. Treasury's FCN program.
Well, that's great. And there are a lot of free resources out there. There are free resources even here in the building today. I was approached by the NSA booth. They're in booth 342. And they said, hey, we've got these great free services that we offer to small businesses. Can you please tell everybody so that they can come over and say hi and get information? This is all for the defense industrial base, for anybody who's doing work in the PACOM. You get free services from NSA. If you're talking about CMMC, talking about cybersecurity, those are some of the things that, as a small business, we don't have the money to pay for all of the cybersecurity that we need in order to hit CMMC 3.0. It's just not going to happen for us. Speaking of cybersecurity and risk management framework, how does that impact your office, Julie? How does the cybersecurity piece work for you? What do small businesses need to know?
Well, one, I would say for CMMC, don't be frightened, right? So if you do any cyber work with my team, you're doing those controls. Okay, so I would sit down and look at the basic controls you have to implement. And yes, so this is my recommendation. If you're here on island, the University of Hawaii has a program. Go find Alan Ito. He's somewhere around here. That is a good project for a student, right? Because what that CMMC is compliance, right? You're going to show how you've implemented those controls. What I'd advise you to look for is, or just beware of the companies that are going to sell you things to secure you, right? So there's some legitimacy there, but I do advise, especially as a small business, the free services, but also the free student labor. We are training up the next generation of cybersecurity professionals, and they are right here on this island, and they need experience and they need credit. So I would say don't be frightened. You can look up Google the top 20 security controls. They've only changed a few times, maybe 18, 21 sometimes. Those are basically the ones you're going to have to implement. A lot of it is common sense at the small business level, again, depending on what level of classification of data you're going to be handling at the time. For cybersecurity, like I mentioned, for us, that would be the bulk of the work that I would ever see you doing, right? That would be cybersecurity for facility-related control systems. Again, all of that's going to come through a MilCon, or if you're a vendor or supporting any of the control systems. Who was at the NAFAC Small Business Procurement Forum this summer? All right, I didn't think so because I didn't recognize anybody. Do you know who was there when you're talking about partnering? You know who was there? All of the big A&E firms. All of them. They had just awarded the $3.9 billion contract. That's one of many billion-dollar contracts that NAFAC Hawaii is awarding coming up. They were all there looking to see what kind of business was coming, and also they were looking for small business partners, right? Because it's mandated that if, again, NAFAC can't give out literally small business contracts, they push it over to the primes, like she mentioned, and said, you go find the small businesses. So I did get some cheat sheet notes from our small business director and from our contracting officer, and they both mentioned the sam.gov, exactly what you were talking about. Get on there and fill out your capability statements. They said don't make it a booklet, make it a couple of pages of detailed information, because if they find you on there, that's part of their market research, exactly what you were talking about. So again, with regarding cybersecurity, with me, you would be specifically through facility-related control system cybersecurity requirements on MilCons, which are, again, the big A&E firms get those big design or those big design and construction contracts, and then they go, whoa, there's a cyber component on here. Who do we get to do that? Or they look at the control system, same thing. That's where you're going to come in and support. Again, back to the CMMC, that comes up a lot. Again, not me, right? Right, I'm not the one going out and certifying you, but if you are doing cybersecurity on control systems, or I would venture to say any information technology system, you are actually already doing it. And don't be frightened by it. The basic level is common sense. Find the college student, work with the university to get a program together and get your documentation. You probably do have to pay somebody to certify you. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to work, but at least you can save money on that preparedness. Compliance is documenting and proving what you're doing.
All right, great answer. So we're sitting here and we're hearing this conversation about CMMC and learning a little bit more about how you see cyber. If I wanted to talk to you more about what my company does, we do cyber, and we think we can do that, and we want to come and talk to you. Are you the person to talk to, or is there somebody that you would direct us to?
No, I would direct you to basically our equivalent of Shayla is Tony Anderson, and I've got his QR code here on my phone for afterwards. So he's the one that you would go and present to exactly what you were talking about with the capabilities or any kind of demonstration. My contracting officer did say about any unsolicited, if you do have a new invention or technology, there is a FAR clause where you can do an unsolicited, proposal. So you can Google that, or I do have it here. I'm not going to read it out to you because it's very long, but basically it's an unsolicited proposal FAR clause that you can do that. But if you ever want to present to me or anyone else in NAFAC here locally, again, Echelon 4, you go through our small business. Again, but I encourage you to also look at the other customer who's taking a ton of, or another agency that's taking a ton of our money, and those are those big A&E firms, right? They win those awards, and then they got to go figure out how to do everything they just said they're going to do. And so I advise the small businesses here locally that if you can figure out how to make them successful, you can sell them a service or a product probably a lot faster than the government. But it's still a way of being involved with the government.
And that's all about the relationships.
Yep.
Great relationships to have. Now, the same question is going to go to you, Rob. If I'm remembering our conversations earlier, you know a thing or two about cybersecurity and about the direction that your agency is moving to engage with more small businesses. Do they come to you? Do they talk to you? Who do they talk to?
Yeah, I guess first I'd make a public statement that what Julie said was there's got to be some level of demystification on what it is you got to do to get accredited, because it really isn't as scary and awful as people may portray it to be. I'd say 5, 8, 10 years ago, it was probably as scary and awful as people are portraying it. But today, people are more biased to getting you to yes than folding their arms and saying none shall pass. You bring me a better rock. And I will also add that good cybersecurity should and can equal getting an ATO and getting accreditation, and not having to do a bunch of things that may or may not matter in the context of how that system is being deployed and used. So you don't have to account for everything. I think another point is that a lot of the small business partners need to get like their security clearances or accreditations. You got to do the paperwork, and you got to do the sets and reps, because more and more of this data and this information is going to become more and more classified as time goes on. I think where things that we did in our accreditation paperwork, it's getting to the point where there's so much valuable information that we're going to have to revisit the security classification guides and bump some of that stuff up. And I feel very comfortable in, even though that would be more work in some cases in this one context, I feel comfortable with that thing happening, But I do think that from an ATO and RMF risk management framework perspective, doing your cybersecurity right and having a plan to keep it right will enable you to get something called continuous monitoring and ongoing authorization. So you'll be able to get an ATO one time, and you'll be able to keep that ATO forever as long as you perform the right levels of hygiene and modernization to that system and capability. Obviously, it's the government's responsibility to do it, but you, as the contractors that deliver the capability, are going to have to facilitate and perform those functions. So I think that there's a lot of things that are going to be changing, that have changed already somewhat significantly. And I'll give you an example, a really salient example. And I know I'm not answering the question on who should they call when they have a cybersecurity challenge, and he can ask me again, like, okay, now can you answer the question? When people do interviews, I always tell them, answer the question. They look at me like I'm crazy, but you'd be surprised how many people come up with their own answers and don't answer the question. It's this thing called RAISE that we do on DevSecOps pipelines. It's I don't even remember the acronym, but basically what it is you rapidly assess a software product. So you have a DevSecOps pipeline, and you have all the right cybersecurity controls in it. So when you develop a piece of software through that DevSecOps pipeline, when it comes out the other end, you're confident that it's secure because you've addressed all the controls that need to be addressed in that pipeline. And you accredit that pipeline basically as a RAISE platform of choice. Now, when you're building new software through that DevSecOps pipeline, if it comes out the other end, it automatically gets an ATO. We've gone from almost 10 or 11 months to get an application, an ATO through a DevSecOps pipeline to 2 hours, literally. And from thousands of man hours to less than a day, using this process, using this innovation that now is spreading across the Department of the Navy and into the rest of the DoD like wildfire. So that's one example of how we're going to transform this process to where it makes friggin' sense, and we don't spend so much time and money on something that doesn't matter moving into the future. So who do you call or talk to about becoming more proficient with the RMF process? That's who do you call, Julie? I mean,
Do they call you? Do they send an email to you and say, hey, I want to show you?
You can send an email to me, and I'll send you the right people to give you some advice and guidance. I know that there's, there's guidance and guides out there on how you should be building an RMF package, how you should be putting data and information into EMAS. I think at the DoD level, there's some kind of single source that you can go to get all that data and information. I just haven't built an ATO package in about 15 years, so
There you go.
I'm sure whatever I did then is no longer valid today.
It changes all the time. So now the questions are going to come from you guys in the audience. I want to open it up. I'm going to ask a couple more questions if anybody doesn't raise their hand. But I want to get some questions from you guys. What do you want to hear from the panel? And while that's going on, I'm looking for hands. All right. I'm going to ask another question. You think on those questions that you want to ask. And that one question is going to be, we started talking about DevSecOps. We started talking about Agile. We started talking about innovation, things that small businesses can bring to the table. And how do we bring those things to the table? Mel, in Hawaii, what is the fastest way that you think a company can go from zero to contracts in this market right now?
Well, I'm a little biased. So, because I have an NHO Native Hawaiian organization-owned 8A company, so that bypasses a lot of the contracting processes to get an award, meaning single source, 100 mil. And the reason I did that, one, is because I didn't know anything about it, so I wanted to try it, and I did it. But the second is it goes fast. And so to answer the question about what can we do here in Hawaii is find your I can't use super anymore. Find your entity-owned 8A companies, specifically Native Hawaiian organization-owned companies, And here's a couple things. One is from the contracting side, but two is when it comes to speed, let's take distance, for example. From Pearl Harbor to Guam into Japan, that's 4,000 nautical miles. That's a lot of space in between here and there. And what about time? Time, like what Julie's saying, flying folks from the mainland to here to perform work. I spent a lot of time when I commanded NIWAC PAC is fixing stuff, specifically canes, if you're familiar with canes, geeks. So these CASREP, casualty reports, I had to find folks, fly them to that theater, get on a ship, and fix it. Unlike this thing, it gets updated. I think it just updated just now, but I don't have to fly a whole army of folks to go update this thing. I don't know if that's answered your question or not, but yeah, time and space.
Fastest way to get up and win contracts is to make friends with an NHL, Native Hawaiian organization.
Well, again, I'm biased, but I think that the fastest way to get a contract is you got to solve an urgent problem. Everything will go fast. All this acquisition process, all these compliances, RMF, believe me, if there's a problem you're solving that's urgent that will save someone's life, all that stuff will happily be accelerated by the boss, meaning either the PACOM commander or you can like Rob. Rob can make it go fast. So thank you.
All right. Julie started shaking her head when you said, "Oh, have something that solves a problem."
Oh, yeah.
What problems do you think they need to solve? What problems do you want solved?
So again, going back to compliance is still our reality, right? So anything that rapidly shows compliance is the documentation that proves what you say you're doing technically, right? So anything that can speed that up. And if you look at risk management framework in the Navy, we call them validators. That's your step 4, right? That's when the independent outside assessor is supposed to come and see. Basically what you need to do, and I imagine it's going to be similar with the CMMC, is you have to establish that trust, right? So anything that would speed up that process to validate what you said you did, in our case, on a particular control system, is true.
Faster to market.
Faster, yep, because it's faster ATO.
Fail fast.
Right?
Yeah.
So the other big one, and I can't stress it enough, is project management. That is such a critical skill in so many areas, but especially for NAFAC. Again, billions of dollars of construction that has to be completed on time and on budget. You need some wicked good project managers to be able to get that done. So anything that can, again, help them manage projects, and specifically on this island, logistics, right? Supply chain is a real thing, and it was a real thing here before it became a thing everywhere else.
Yeah.
Right? So those are some of the things that I definitely see immediately that, and I've seen move very quickly through contracts. And again, back to the partnering thing. There's a lot of big companies that are looking for the small business local so that they can claim that local, one, first of all, but also because they need that online island support because of the cost of flying people back and forth.
All right, audience, quick question for you. Hands up, how many of you are actively going out and building your project management processes to move more quickly, to move more agile, to do DevSecOps better? DevSecOps not so much for construction, but you see that's something that the small businesses would like to bring to the table. All right. Go ahead, Mel. You had something, and you looked excited.
I was going to say, MilCon, DevSecOps, there's a convergence here. So additive manufacturing, getting things out at the point of need. Let's take Guam. Guam is it is a challenge for logistics to get things out there. So if you can print things out there and get things out faster on the buildings, could be an antenna, it could be a UAV, it could be whatever is required for that facility. We're not talking just your 4 walls and roof. You're talking the facility that has a capability. And having, when it comes to DevSecOps, you're not familiar with that, it's updating the software remotely. There's a lot of challenges between here and getting it to here, meaning as we call, I think we still call it the digital thread. For example, if something gets in here and puts a little tweak in the software and this thing flies, and it crashes, say, into a base, a U.S. base or U.S. ship, then that supply chain also included that digital thread, which includes cyber security.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to go one more time. Anybody think of a question? We've got a question. You have a statement.
Get Mr.
Come on up here. It's all right. She's going to use mine. I share.
Hi, I came here today. I work closely with Tony and Jamie. I'm the director of PACOM Small Business Programs, and if anybody wants to contact me while I'm here, I'll be here today and tomorrow. I would love to get a copy of your capability briefings. We have 2 bases in Alaska, 2 bases in Guam, 3 in Japan, and 1 here in Hawaii. So I'm Ailey Soriel, and if you see me and you want to get a copy, I have a card on my phone. You can scan my little QR code, and I'd love to work with every single one of you and teach you how to do business with PACAF.
Oh, you're very welcome. See, that's the value that FCA brings to the table, everybody. Thank you very much. All right, I'm going to go now. We're going to go one more final comment from everybody. We're going to start all the way at the end with Julie. Come this way. Final comments for everybody. How do small businesses work with you to bring...
Yeah, so I'm just going to reiterate what we've been saying and, get on SAM.gov, update your capability statements. When NAFAC has a small business procurement forum, go to it. That's when you're going to learn about all of the work. And it's not just the big MilCons. Remember, we have to do the sustainment contracts as well after the facility is finished being built, right? And then you learn about cyber. So you'll get a brief from me, you'll get a brief from contract, the CO's there, design and construction is there, public works is there. They're all briefing everything they know of that they can tell you that is possibly coming out and then what they're going to be looking for. So again, I can't stress enough to use our small business director, Tony Anderson. I have his QR code here. And update your capability statements on SAM.gov. And then network. Start networking and start finding the big A&E firms. Like I said, they come to those things. That is the best way to get some of this money, basically, that's being pumped into the region in facility-related control systems, for cyber if you're looking tech, but for construction as well.
Wow, great answer. Thank you very much. Shayla?
Even if I don't have enough flyers or guides for you guys today, everything I've talked about is available through our website, sba.gov. Okay, there's a lot of resources there. If you've never put a business plan together, there's templates that are available to you. You will need a business plan if you're applying for a small business loan or bonding or insurance, and even in the 8A program. You all know the difference between a sole source and a competitive vehicle? Okay, so the most prevalent sole source vehicle used on the island is 8A. So if you are eligible, it is incumbent upon you, please apply. We like to see our 8A portfolio grow over the years, but ever since COVID, it's been a stable line. So find a way. We also encourage the woman-owned small business certification. HubZone is going to be a little bit more difficult because on Oahu specifically, there's only pockets. Both Oahu and Maui are only pockets, but the other islands, Big Island, Kauai, Molokai, the whole entire island is HubZone. So even if you don't qualify for 8A, all you have to do is have a bona fide office. Rent a small 50-square-foot office, slap your name on it. The definition for principal office in HubZone is where a majority of your employees are located. The definition for principal office in 8A is where your business records are kept. I know I'm getting into the weeds, but I'm showing you creative ways to find a certification. Because anytime you can reduce your competition, it just means a better chance for you to get a contract. That contract is going to help you gain past performance. That past performance is going to help you increase your bonding or your insurance and get bigger jobs. Okay, so I'll have my business cards out if you guys have specific questions that you can email me on, and we do work faster through email. Okay.
Thank you very much. Real quick before we go to Rob, just a hands up. HubZone small businesses. I know I'm one. I know we have somebody else who used to be one here in the audience with Vision IT. There is a lot behind a hub zone. So if you have questions about a hub zone and you want to talk to somebody who knows, somebody who's lived the pain that is the hub zone program, reach out to myself. Victoria, stand up real quick, please. Two people who have lived the pain of hub zones. I'm sure there are others in the audience. Be sure to do your research. It's good. It has some drawbacks, though. Thank you very much for that. Final remarks, Rob?
Yeah. So we say live the dream anyways in the Navy. With respect to my enterprise, I'd recommend that if you have a technology or a capability or a question about how to get opportunities across all of NAVWAR, the Navy Information Warfare Enterprise, Kim Reedy is our small business lead, R-E-I-D-Y, I believe. If you Google NAVWAR NAVWAR small business, her name will come up. Typically what happens is you go and you tell her what you ask her a question or tell her about a capability you have. She will go directly to the specific program offices and the part of my organization that have interest in that kind of technology and capability and say, hey, I got some passed down from this company that does A, B, and C. You guys interested? And I'd say 7 out of 10 times it's like, hey, I want to get these guys on my calendar and I want to talk to them and ask them some questions. And that then starts to pry the door open a little bit as a really good opportunity for you guys to be able to provide capability. Because from where I sit, a metric on bringing more small business to deliver our warfighting capabilities is a metric success for me, because the architecture is lending. We're not this big monolithic, I'm going to give you 8 of these a year. We're now being small and fast and agile and more relevant to what the warfighter needs in real time. So I look forward to seeing how this journey progresses in a positive way in that context.
I know every business out here is excited to help you with that too. Thank you very much, Rob. Mel?
For me, again, thanks for the opportunity to pass my what's called Kuliana, my knowledge forward. What I've learned, so I spent 28 plus years pretty much in government acquisition. I can tell you, being an industry person, it's a whole different game. And so here's what I've learned since I retired 4 years ago. There's really 2 things that small businesses should look at to make sure they're competitive for a contract. The first one is, are you responsive? Like Rob said, just answer the questions in the RFP. Don't go crazy, just answer the questions. That's all. I remember sitting on a TEB, a technical evaluation board, and the easiest way to the easy way to lessen the amount of proposals is look for things like that. They didn't answer the questions. Okay, not a good pile. Keeping it in the good pile is also responsibility. And what I mean by responsibility is you got the clearances, you have the accounting systems, you have the past performance, all of these things that you should have to be eligible to bid. If you got those 2 simple things, responsibility and responsiveness always wins. Just answer the questions. Responsibility, if you're not there yet with to be eligible, for example, I've learned this because I've unfortunately won some contracts, but I'd say 80% of them were protested. And so I learned from a protest lawyer what they're looking for, those 2 things, responsibility and responsiveness. If you meet those 2, then your protest will go forward, or you'll lose. But hopefully this helps, and thanks again.
That was awesome. Thank you guys very much. Everybody, a round of applause for the panelists. I think they did a great job for us today, giving us a ton of information. All right, now I'm going to wrap up one more thing. Just a big thank you to AFCEA International. As the small business chair, I've been trying to grow the things that we do at these conferences. Big thank you goes out to the Hawaii chapter and to Makana. He is the small business chair for the Hawaii chapter. If you want to know more about the small business chapter in Hawaii, reach out to Makana. If you want to know more about the international side, please reach out to me. You'll see me walking the floor the next couple of days. Come up to me, shake my hand, say hi. Would love to meet you. Thank you all for attending. Everybody have a great, great conference. Bye, everybody.